Hey everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, the Las Vegas Raiders insider, also part of the Fans First Sports Network, where you can catch our pods every time we do one. If you're just looking for the audio, it's a great way to get it quick and get out. Joined by my good pal, Matt Hladek from thespun.com, editor, publisher, colleague with me as part of the network I'm on. Matt, I want to dig in on the draft. I've got a lot of people talking to me now. Months ago, I wrote that I was hearing from NFL people it was the deepest draft in years at corner and tight end. And then I've had some people say to me, what's some of the low areas? Well, first of all, there isn't one quarterback that anybody thinks is a surefire guy. And I was told there's only one running back. I was told this by multiple people. There's only one running back and one wide receiver that they think is worth a first round draft. Now, you look at some of these mocks. I saw one that had 4 receivers, 3 running backs, but the teams that I'm talking to, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver. The wide receiver is the kid out of Ohio State. They love him, and they love the running back out of Texas. But they think it is a very up at the top, not a deep draft at quarterback, running back, or wide receiver. Now, coincidentally, hearing a lot of guys talk about they think it's a very deep draft at quarterback after the first round. So, but not with running back and not with wide receiver. Give me your thoughts and analysis on that, would you please?
I'll start with the receiver because I don't think it's one of those drafts that you have, there's no Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase type prospect in this draft, or a few. I'm trying to think of a few years ago when you had Ruggs and Judy and Jeff. All those guys all went in the same round, same draft, same type of um, range there. I don't think there's a true stud or two that stands out. I do think that there's some quality pieces. There's a lot of depth in terms of teams will be able to find fits that they like, fits that they need at receiver. There's a lot of different kinds of receivers, whether they're bigger guys like Quentin Johnson at TCU or Jonathan Mingo at Ole Miss, who's kind of rising up boards, or you got the smaller, shiftier guys like Zay Flowers. Um, there's a lot of different pieces out there at receiver. So I don't think it's a real top heavy draft. I think there's some decent depth there. Running back, Bijan Robinson is the stud. He's the guy that people are projecting to really be. If there's going to be a first round running back, it's going to be him. Beyond that, it's not a great draft for running backs. You might see a guy who is starting to make some noise and is actually his backup, Roshan Johnson, who didn't get a ton of run at Texas because he was stuck behind Bijan Robinson. But so now he might have some fresh legs. He has a good skill set. He might be a nice pickup for a team on day 2 or day 3. Getting to quarterback, I agree. None of those the big 4 have the what I think is going to be the potential of the big two next year of Caleb Williams and Drake May. I don't think that they have some of the potential that you saw in some of the more recent quarterback classes that just came into the league. But I do think Bryce Young, as long as his frame holds up, is going to be a really quality NFL player.
Great.
I think that Anthony Richardson is worth a big swing from teams. And I think that CJ Stroud will have a solid career. And I think, with Will Levis, it's all going to come down to, I think if he needs some development too, like Richardson, but if he finds a good fit, he could develop into a quality starter. So I think there's potential there, but there's not the can't miss type studs at those 3 positions.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about a couple of quarterbacks. I want to talk about Hendon Hooker. This
Mm.
is a guy that almost every scout I talked to said if there had not been an injury, he would be up in that mix. I got a couple of guys that told me that they had him prior to the injury at number 1 on their board for this draft for quarterback. Um, yeah, he comes from a system where he throws to a spot. Yep, that's totally true. He's going to have to adjust to the pro game. But like one guy said, he still makes those throws. He still completes 70% of his passes. The guy doesn't throw interceptions, and he's a rare breed with his legs. This is what one scout told me, Matt. He goes, a lot of guys with legs earlier in their career take off too quick. They don't let the play develop. And Hendon Hooker is a rare breed, and that he'll stay in the pocket till the last second. A lot of people love Hendon Hooker. I know the Raiders do too. But what do you think of him? And I find it fascinating. A lot of guys told me they'd have him at the top of their list if there hadn't have been an injury.
Well, like you said, the biggest concern for him, injury, age, he's already 25, and that Tennessee system, he had a lot of talent around him, but just the type of offense that Josh Heupel runs, a lot of easy reads, a lot of easy throws, kind of factored in. But I think that if, to me, I think that I said this the other day to one of my colleagues. I think that Hendon Hooker, he's kind of getting talked up now as the sleeper in this class, and it's been that way for a little while. I think it's going to be one or two things are going to happen. I think you're going to see him come in. He's either going to come in and after a year or two, he's going to be looking like a starter and looking like somebody got the steal, and people are going to be kicking themselves for not taking the shot on him sooner or passing him, bypassing him. Or I think he's going to be kind of trending toward being a backup or journeyman type or out of the league, and people are going to be saying, "Wow, what was all that hype for in the first place?" So I think it's kind of two drastic kind of fits for him, but I think the ceiling could be very high.
I agree with you. You know what's funny, Matt, is how many scouts have just said to me, we listen, and when I say scouts, I'm talking about scouts from successful franchises. And they talk about when you're in those top 15, 20 picks, you can't afford to make a mistake. But when you're in the top 10, you either got to trade out or you better be sure because those picks are so valuable. And there's such a need at quarterback that he said, I had one guy tell me 2 days ago, he said, listen, we don't have one of those quarterbacks as a first round grade. Every one of them have concerns. And he goes, and that's why teams who are consistently in the top, consistently draft in the top, is they take risks. I'll tell you, I thought that was pretty telling.
It is. It is funny how you see for 4 or 5 years straight some of the same teams up in the top 10, top five, still struggling trying to find the right fit. A lot of times it is because they've taken a quarterback that high and it hasn't worked out. Because if you don't take a quarterback, yes, you can get out of that mistake quicker now with the way that the wage scales are, and you're seeing teams kind of move on quicker from failed drafted quarterbacks. But still, that does set you back a little bit. Um, I do think if you don't hit on that sure thing, whether it's a offensive, defensive lineman or one of the quarterback prospects, preferably, you're going to be picking in the top 5 or the top 10 in the coming years as well. So I would agree with that assessment from the scout.
Last thing from me, Matt, I've asked a lot of my scout friends what they think the Raiders are going to do at 7, and 65% say they think they're trading out. That that would be the best for the Raiders. That there's just not, not depending how it drops, one of the dudes can drop, but 65% think the Raiders are going to get out of it and trade it. What are your thoughts?
You know, I'm always a big proponent of trading down unless there's a guy there that you absolutely have to have, or you're in a position to take a quarterback. Because I always feel like amassing more assets, taking more chances to kind of hit on picks during the draft is the right way to go. Obviously, you have to find a trade partner, got to find the right compensation to make the move. But I'm always a big proponent of trading out on principle. So I think that that's an intriguing option for the Raiders because if you look at the Raiders, we've talked about this before, they're retooling slash rebuilding, whatever you want to call it. They need to shore up their roster. There's a lot of holes they got to fill. And I think that trading down gives them a good chance to do that. It could, they can add perhaps another day 2 pick, add some more day 3 picks in the fourth or fifth round where you can build the depth on your roster. So to me, I think strategically, that's a sound decision. If the Raiders make it, they think that's what they want to do. Excuse me.
He is the great Matt Holatic from the spun.com. Matt, I said this last time, but I got one more I want to get to you. You and I grew up, and I'm older than you, but we grew up, and I remember being in high school, and and the draft was just starting to be televised. It was only the first round. And then you'd have to go to ESPN2 if you wanted to see the rest. Now it's moving around the country. It was always at Radio City Music Hall. It's moving around the country. It has become such an enormous event. You and I have talked about this for over a decade on this podcast. But doesn't it just prove how big the NFL has gotten? Now there's people saying they want to take the combine, they want to move the Pro Bowl around, about how enormous this league has become.
It's a year-round behemoth, and you have your regular season and postseason, you know, including training camp, and that goes, six full months into a seventh month. But then the rest of the time is you have the combines, you have combine seating, you have free agency, and now the trade market we're seeing take off. The draft has always been popular in my lifetime, but it's soared in recent years. So it's just the NFL, it stays in the public's consciousness for 12 months a year. And we just joked about it right at the top of the show. We joked about talking about, how it feels like yesterday the Super Bowl's here. And now we're already at the NFL draft. And pretty soon it'll be the end of, the mandatory workouts in June. And then next thing you know, it'll be training camp. So it's an endless cycle, but I love it. I love it as someone who covers the league and enjoys it. I think it always gives you something to talk about, something to kind of, if you're a fan, dig in on and look forward to. And the offseason, in my opinion, is as fun, if not more fun, than the regular season is.
I agree. I remember this is going to tell you how old I am. I remember going down to my high school and on a Monday morning to get the newspaper, the Detroit Free Press, because I had to see who did the Lions select over the weekend, because the draft wasn't all televised, and being all excited they signed Rodney Peete, the quarterback out of USC. That's how old I am. And now there are people having 3-day parties. 3-day parties. It is just amazing. Love them or hate them, the NFL knows how to market itself, doesn't it?
Without a doubt. No question about it.
All right. You're the best, my friend. I love you dearly. That is Matt Holatic from the spun.com, editor and publisher. I'm Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders insider, also part of the Fan First Sports Network with our podcast. We'll see you all later. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Matt.
Anytime, man. Love you, brother.
Love you too.